Drelvok had spent his entire life searching for the truth. As one of the most respected historians in the Galactic Dominion, he had studied ancient wars, lost civilizations, and forgotten battles. He had read about ships so powerful they could destroy entire fleets and warriors so skilled they could change the fate of a war. But there was one legend that had haunted him for years. The Revenant, a warship unlike any other, a ghost of battle, said to appear only when humanity was in grave danger. It was rumored to be indestructible, an ancient relic from a forgotten time. But of course, it was just a story. Or so he had believed. Now, sitting in the archives of the Dominion's Grand Library, he wasn't so sure. The myths varied from planet to planet, species to species. The Zelvarn believed the Revenant had been a creation of the old gods, sent to punish those who defied them. The Skrael thought it was a cursed weapon, abandoned by its creators when it became too powerful. But the humans, they never spoke of it. And that was the strangest part. For a species that recorded everything, from their victories to their defeats, there was almost nothing about the Revenant in human history. It was as if they had erased it. Or worse, as if they were hiding it. Drelvok rubbed his temples, staring at the last known mention of the warship. The record was over 300 years old, a faded transmission intercepted during a battle between the Dominion and the Terran Defense Force. It contained only 3 words. "It is awake." And then nothing. The Dominion fleet had vanished without a trace. No debris, no distress calls, no survivors. Just gone. Drelvok sighed and leaned back in his chair. It had to be a hoax. There was no such thing as an unstoppable warship, no such thing as a ghost ship that appeared only when humanity needed it most. But then, why were there no records? Why did every government, every species, fear the name? And why, after centuries of silence, was the Dominion preparing to invade a human colony, only to suddenly detect an unknown presence in deep space? Drelvok's hands trembled as he pulled up the latest military reports. A Dominion fleet was on the move, heading toward the human world of Callum Prime. It was supposed to be an easy victory. The human defenses were weak, their fleets spread thin. But something wasn't right. The lead admiral had reported strange sensor readings near the system. A faint energy signature, so old it barely registered. And then, just like in the old stories, ships started disappearing. No warnings, no wreckage, just gone. Drelvok's breath caught in his throat. It couldn't be real. It couldn't be. And yet, deep in the void of space, something was waking up. Something that had slept for centuries. Something that had been waiting for the right moment to return. And the Dominion, in its arrogance, was about to learn why humanity had never spoken of the Revenant. Because some myths. Admiral Threx stood on the bridge of the Dominion battleship Praxis, arms crossed, his expression one of utter boredom. The invasion of Callum Prime was supposed to be routine. A mere human colony, light defenses, no major fleet presence. And yet, his officers were whispering about ghosts. "Another patrol ship lost contact, sir," reported a junior officer, his voice uneasy. No distress signal, no wreckage. Threx rolled his eyes. Faulty equipment, or incompetence. The officer hesitated. "Sir, that's the 4th ship in the past hour." Threx turned, his glare like ice. "Are you telling me you believe these stories?" The officer swallowed. "No, sir. But the fleet. The fleet will do as ordered," Threx snapped. The myths were nonsense. A warship that appeared when humans were in danger. A relic that could destroy entire fleets. Ridiculous. Still, he glanced at the holographic display. A section of the fleet, which should have been holding formation, was missing. No distress calls. No escape pods. Just gone. Threx clenched his jaw. "Send in a recon squad. I want eyes on what's out there." Minutes later, 4 Dominion scout ships streaked into the dark void, scanning the region where the missing vessels had last been seen. Their transmissions came through the bridge speakers, calm at first, then filled with confusion. "I'm seeing something, sir." Threx leaned forward, define something. A long pause. Then, unknown structure. Metallic. No active energy signature. It's massive. Threx frowned. A derelict? Possibly a human station. Negative, sir. There's no record of any human installations in this sector. Another voice cut in, panicked. "Wait, I'm picking up markings on the hull. This isn't a station, sir. It's a ship. Static." Then, a voice barely above a whisper. "The Revenant. It's real." And then, silence. All 4 scout ships vanished from the display. Threx's blood ran cold. For the first time in his career, he felt it. Fear. Something was out there. Something watching. Waiting. And the Dominion had just woken it up. "You said." Silence filled the bridge of the Vraxis. Admiral Threx stared at the empty void where 4 scout ships had once been. No debris. No distress calls. Just gone. The crew shifted nervously. They had fought wars, crushed rebellions, and conquered entire star systems. But this was something else. "Admiral," a technician whispered, breaking the silence. "We have an incoming transmission." Threx's head snapped toward him. "From where?" The technician hesitated. "Unknown origin, sir, but it's broadcasting in Old Earth Standard." A chill ran through the bridge. Humans hadn't used that language in centuries. "Put it through," Threx ordered, trying to mask the unease in his voice. The speakers crackled. For a moment, there was only static. Then, a voice. Deep, calm, unyielding. "You were warned." The transmission cut out. The bridge was deathly quiet. Threx clenched his fists. "Find the source of that signal. Now." "Sir," the sensor officer's voice trembled. "We have a contact. Bearing 042. Distance, 50,000 kilometers." That was impossible. Nothing had been there a second ago. On screen, Threx barked. The holographic display flickered to life, and the bridge crew froze. There it was. A warship, massive, ancient, and scared from battles long past, drifting silently in the void. Its hull was blackened, as if burned by 1,000 suns. Strange markings ran along its surface, glowing faintly with an energy signature unlike anything in the Dominion's records. And yet, something about it felt wrong. It wasn't just floating. It was watching. "Scan that thing," Threx ordered. "I want to know what the hell we're dealing with." The crew scrambled. Seconds passed. Then, "Admiral, I don't understand." The readings. The sensor officer swallowed hard. "It has no active power signature. It's giving off 0 emissions." Threx frowned. "It's dead." "I don't know, sir." The officer's hands trembled. "But its reading is over 500 years old." 500 years. That was before the Dominion even existed. Threx gritted his teeth. "Send a warning shot. I want to see if it reacts." A Dominion cruiser fired a plasma bolt, brilliant blue energy streaking across the void. The bolt hit the ship's hull and dispersed. No impact, no explosion, as if the warship had absorbed it. Then, without warning, the warship came to life. The faint, eerie glow along its hull brightened. Symbols pulsed. Energy rippled through its frame. It wasn't dead. It had been waiting. The sensor officer gasped. "Sir, we're detecting a massive power surge." Before he could finish, the warship moved. Not like a normal vessel, with slow, calculated propulsion. It lurched forward instantly, closing the 50,000-kilometer distance in the blink of an eye. It was impossible. Nothing should be able to move like that. Threx barely had time to react before alarms blared across the ship. "Sir, it's locking onto us." "Shields up," Threx roared. "All ships, evasive maneuvers." Too late. A low, humming noise filled the air. Then, light. A single thin beam of golden energy fired from the warship, hitting a Dominion cruiser. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then, the cruiser vanished. No explosion, no debris. Just erased from existence. Silence fell over the Dominion fleet. No one spoke, no one breathed. Threx's heart pounded. For the first time, he realized something horrifying. This wasn't just a warship. It was something else. Something that should not exist. Something that had just woken up. And now, it was looking at them. You said. Panic spread through the Dominion fleet like wildfire. Admiral Threx gripped the edge of his command console, his mind racing. This isn't possible. One shot, a single precise beam of golden energy, and an entire cruiser, one of the Dominion's most powerful warships, was gone. Not destroyed, not damaged, erased. "Sir, orders," a lieutenant shouted, his voice shaking. Threx opened his mouth, but no words came out. He was an experienced commander, trained for every possible scenario. But nothing had prepared him for this. The Dominion had fought countless battles. They had faced resistance before, but never had they fought a myth. And never had they faced something that fought like this. The ancient warship, the Revenant, remained still, as if daring them to make another move. Its hull glowed faintly, as if it were studying them. Then, without warning, another transmission came through. The same calm, unshaken voice as before. "Leave human space. Do not return." A pause. There will be no second warning. And just like that, the transmission cut off. The bridge was silent. Threx's officers stared at him, waiting for his decision. His hands clenched into fists. Retreat. The very thought of it was unthinkable. The Dominion did not retreat. They conquered. And yet, his fleet had no chance. Even with hundreds of warships, the Dominion could not fight something they did not understand. Threx turned toward the tactical officer. "Status of the fleet." "Sir, we're down 14 ships. The officer swallowed hard. "They all just vanished. No debris. No wreckage. Just gone." Threx forced his breathing to steady. "Have we gathered any data on their weapons?" The officer shook his head. "No known energy signatures match. It's not plasma-based. Not ion. Not antimatter. It's something else. Something beyond them." Threx gritted his teeth. Every instinct screamed at him to order an all-out assault, to overwhelm this thing with sheer firepower. But deep down, he knew the truth. It wouldn't matter. This wasn't a battle they could win. He turned toward his communications officer. "Send the retreat signal." The officer hesitated. "Sir." "Send it," Threx snapped. A moment later, across the fleet, Dominion ships began turning away. Engines roared to life as they prepared to jump into hyperspace. For the first time in centuries, the Dominion was running. As the Revenant watched them flee, its glowing hull dimmed once more. It had been waiting for this moment. For centuries, it had slept, hidden in the void, watching as the stars changed, as new empires rose and fell. But it had never forgotten. Humanity had built it for a reason. And now it had served its purpose once more. With a final pulse of energy, the warship vanished into the darkness, leaving only silence behind. But the Dominion would never forget. They had been warned. And next time, there would be no mercy. "You said." The Dominion fleet limped away from the battlefield, its warships retreating into hyperspace like wounded beasts. Admiral Threx sat in his command chair aboard the Vraxis, staring at the empty void where the Revenant had been. His hands trembled, not from anger, not from shame, but from fear. The Dominion had fought countless battles, conquered entire civilizations, crushed rebellions before they could even begin. But never had they faced something like this. Not a war, not even a battle. A warning, a reminder that there were still things in the galaxy that could not be explained, could not be defeated. Threx turned to his officers. Status report. A tense silence filled the bridge before someone finally spoke. "We've lost 17 ships, sir," the tactical officer said, his voice quiet. "No damage reports. No survivors. They were just erased." The room felt colder. Even in defeat, there were always survivors. Wreckage. A chance to understand what had happened. But the Revenant had left them nothing. Like it had never been there at all. The Dominion High Command was not pleased. The moment the fleet returned to Dominion space, Threx was summoned to the Central War Council. The holographic chamber was filled with the highest-ranking officials in the Empire. Admirals, generals, the Supreme Chancellor himself. They demanded answers. "What happened at Callum Prime?" one of the admirals asked, his tone sharp. Threx stood at attention, his expression unreadable. "We encountered an unknown threat." The room murmured. "An unknown human threat?" the Chancellor asked. Threx hesitated. Then, finally, he shook his head. "I don't think it belongs to them. Not anymore." Silence. They didn't understand. They couldn't. He thought back to those final moments. The eerie glow of the warship, the way it had watched them, the voice in the transmission. "You were warned." Was it controlled by humans, or was it something else entirely? A weapon from another time. A ghost of war lingering in the void. Whatever it was, it had let them go. This time, High Command wanted to retaliate, to send another fleet, to strike back, to prove that the Dominion was not afraid. Threx said nothing, because he knew the truth. If they returned, if they ignored the warning, there would be no retreat. No survivors, only silence. And somewhere, in the endless void of space, the Revenant waited, watching, ready. "You said." Admiral Threx sat alone in his private chamber, staring at the holographic console before him. The War Council had dismissed him, declared him a coward. Even now, Dominion officials were preparing a new fleet, one larger than before. They would return to Callum Prime, and they would die. Threx exhaled slowly. He had to know the truth. If the Dominion refused to listen, he would find the answers himself. He accessed the Dominion's classified archives. There were always stories about lost human technology, forgotten war machines, and ancient weapons of mass destruction. But they were myths, nothing more than old war propaganda. Or so he had always believed. Now, after what he had seen, Threx wasn't so sure. He typed in a request for restricted human war records. Access DNID. Threx frowned. He outranked almost everyone in the military. He should have access. He overrode the system with his personal command codes. The screen flickered. Lines of data scrolled past. Then, Project REVENANT. Threx's pulse quickened. He opened the file. What he saw shook him to his core. The records were centuries old, dating back to the first wars between humanity and the Dominion's early expansion. Humanity had been outnumbered, outgunned, on the brink of annihilation. So they built a final weapon. Not just a warship. Something worse. The Revenant was never just a ship. It was a construct of war itself, a fusion of human ingenuity and something far older. It was said to be powered by technology no one fully understood, not even the humans who created it, because it wasn't just a weapon. It was alive, self-learning, self-repairing, self-aware, and worst of all, it never stopped fighting. Not until the war was over. Not until humanity was safe. And when the Dominion finally signed a truce with the last human resistance, the Revenant disappeared. No one knew where it went. No one wanted to. Until now. Threx leaned back in his chair, his hands shaking. The War Council had no idea what they were about to provoke. The Revenant was still out there, still watching, still waiting for its next war. And if the Dominion returned, it would wake up again. And this time, it wouldn't just give a warning. It would finish what it started. "You said." Admiral Threx stood on the command deck of the Vraxis, watching as the Dominion's new invasion fleet assembled before him. Thousands of warships. More firepower than any fleet in Dominion history. It wouldn't be enough. They didn't understand. No one understood, but they would. The fleet arrived at Callum Prime with overwhelming force. Every warship trained its weapons on the empty void where the Revenant had last been seen. And then, it appeared. Not with a flash. Not with a hyperspace signature. It was just there. Silent. Waiting. As if it had never left. As if it had always been watching. The Dominion ships hesitated. No one spoke. No one fired. Then, the voice returned. Calm. Cold. Final. You were warned. The War Council gave the order. Fire. The Dominion fleet unleashed hell. Thousands of plasma bolts, hypervelocity rounds, planet-killer warheads. The void burned. And then, it all stopped. Every shot, every missile, every beam of energy. Frozen in space, like time itself had bent around the warship. Then, it fired back. One single shot. A pulse of golden energy rippled outward, expanding like a wave. Not an explosion. Not destruction. Erasure. The Dominion fleet vanished. Every ship. Every soldier. Gone. Not even dust remained. As if they had never existed.